I'm Arius of Alexandria, the talk of the town, friend of saints, elect of heaven, filled with learning and renown. If you want the Logos doctrine, I can serve it hot and hot. God begot him, and before he was begotten, he was not. Thomas Jefferson's great-grandson famously declared that Jefferson was a conservative Unitarian. Is that statement true? Christian anti-Trinitarianism, or as it was called by the end of the Reformation, Unitarianism, has a long history. Tonight I want to look at, first quickly, Unitarianism in early Christianity, second, also quickly, at Unitarianism during the Reformation, and third, at some of the characteristics of Jefferson's religion, and finally, at the question of whether we can accurately view Jefferson as a creative heir to this Unitarian tradition. The poetry you just heard came from one of the propaganda songs used by Arius of Alexandria. Arius was a Christian presbyter of great appeal who was theologically a subordinationist. What was a subordinationist? They are Christians who believe that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, but that he is not equal to God. And early Christianity contained many subordinationists. They fell into two schools. The first school held that Jesus was a human being whom God had raised after his crucifixion to divine status. Their rallying cry was, "Jesus is from below." The second group of subordinationists held that Jesus was a divine being whom God had sent down to earth. Their rallying cry was, "Jesus is from above." And early in the 4th century, Arius becomes the leader of this second group. All subordinationists cited certain biblical passages supporting their position. Arius especially cites Proverbs, "The Lord created me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of old." He also cites Colossians, "Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation." And he also uses John 14, where Jesus says, quote, "If you loved me, you would rejoice that I am going to the Father, because the Father is greater than I," end quote. In writings, in sermons, and in songs, Arius teaches that Jesus was essentially a super-angelic being whom God had created out of nothing. Hence, though immensely superior to humans, Jesus was subordinate to God. And for a time, a majority of Christians accept this interpretation of Jesus. Arius is building upon a history ever growing of early Christian subordinationism, and he almost succeeds. But in the 4th century, a bishop named Athanasius, not one of Jefferson's all-time favorites, and 2 church councils overthrow Arius's views. They issue the Nicene Creed, still recited in Christian churches. And that creed asserts that Jesus is the Son of God who is, quote, "begotten, not made, and one in being with the Father," end quote. In the next century, another council declares that the Holy Spirit is divine. And since that time, the doctrine of the Trinity, which Jefferson thought a, quote, "metaphysical insanity," end quote, has been a hallmark of Orthodox Christianity. And the union of church and state after the 4th century meant that Trinitarianism became the only interpretation permitted.